Welcome to the Broadside Podcast.
With host, my dad, Andy Elliott.
All right, welcome back to the Broadside Podcast. I am Andy Elliott, and my guest today is Hannah Scott. And Hannah Scott is a first-generation adult onset hunter. If you don't know what that is, it's somebody who picks up the lifestyle and sport later on in life. In her case, a friend of hers got her introduced to, she kind of dove in pretty quickly to the backcountry hunting. So it's a cool perspective to get to hear for someone who picks this lifestyle up and transitions, from city life and night out on the town to archery shoots and sleeping in a tent. So give it a listen, and thank you. We'll just start off with an introduction and have you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm Hannah Scott. I am a Washington resident. I lived here pretty much my whole life, except for a year when I lived in Vegas. I grew up doing sports like gymnastics, and then got into mixed martial arts and started fighting when I was like 19, and then did that for about 5 years. Now I work in real estate, and I spend a lot of my time fishing and hunting after this past year, and I travel a lot. A big part of my background is trying out new states and trying out new countries. That's a little background on
Growing up, where did you live?
Edmonds, Washington.
Edmonds. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what was it like, kind of, I guess, did you really run into a lot of people who hunted and fished as, growing up in a big city?
No. The little town where I went to like elementary school, they called it Deadman's because it was a retirement community. So it was really quiet, laid back. Nobody really did anything. I mean, people enjoyed the water because we were so close to the water. And then when I moved into Seattle, there was not anyone that I knew that did any of those things. And yeah, it was pretty laid back. So no, I didn't grow. I mean, maybe I would go fishing every now and then with my grandpa, but that was one of those like go on the boat and then he tells you just shh, be quiet or you scare all the fish away. Now I'm like,
Do you recall kind of like how you back then viewed hunting, or people around you maybe viewed hunting?
yeah, I don't think I even really knew about it. It was never something that had crossed my mind really until maybe I got a little bit older. Gosh, I don't think. I mean, my dad and I weren't super close, but I know he used to go and do it. I never really took me. I don't think it was ever something that I was like, yeah, let's go hunting, let's go fishing. It was just kind of maybe when I got around like 22, 23, when I met like my first hunter, I guess, friend. But at that point I was like, I'm not going out there. No way. Like, yeah, I'd go hiking and camping, but I'm not gonna go get an animal. That's crazy.
So, is that kind of that first hunter friend? Is that kind of how you initially sparked your interest in hunting?
A little bit. He was like in our friend circle, and I just remember when like September would come around, we'd have these like events that we would want him to go to with us, and he'd be like, "Sorry, I can't hunting." I'm like, okay, whatever, lame. But not until last year was when I really I met someone who actually introduced me to the sport, I guess, or way of life, I'd say. But yeah, when I was younger, it was not really on my radar to go out there. I mean, maybe because then he would get excited. That first guy, his name was Alex. He would get super excited telling stories. Like if I asked, like, "How was your hunt?" and he was like, "Just get." I mean, honestly, that's probably the same reaction that I get from anybody if I ever ask them how was the hunt, and then they're like, "Now I understand."
Yeah.
But yeah, that the guy that I met last year, his name's Connor. Um, and he was the one who like really got me stoked and excited because I just wanted something different in my life, and I was so bored with the things that the city had to offer, and it was just so repetitive. Like you go to work, get off work, drink, and then you go to bed super late and you wake up late, and my life was just not didn't really feel fulfilled, I guess.
Yeah, hunting. I don't maybe for you too, but for me, uh, the the need to be in like good shape, healthy, and kind of something you're excited about drives me to go work out, eat clean, um, so I don't look like a sissy hiking up the mountains with other people.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'm probably in the best shape of my life now, and again, I attribute a lot of that to Connor, and because getting out there, like it was kind of one of those things where when I was getting prepared for it, he's like, you gotta be able to hike for X amount of miles. Like we're gonna be in the backcountry. It's not gonna be easy. You gotta be in shape. You gotta make sure your legs are ready. So I had a weight vest that I'd had when COVID happened, and I would like walk up the stairs near my house with a weight vest. And being active has always been a part of my life. Like I don't remember the last time that I went longer than a week not working out. Um, but when I was getting prepared to go on the first elk hunt, I took that weight vest and I went to the gym and I started doing stairs. And I would do like I started probably with like 10 minutes because I was like, damn, this thing's heavy. And then, work my way up to like 30 minutes. And then when we actually got out there, I was like, yeah, I'm really glad I actually prepared for this because there was no joke. It was just a constant, like you wake up at 4 in the morning, you get out there and you're ready to go. Like the whole day, right? Maybe you get a little couple breaks where you're, you know, sitting and glassing or eating. But outside of that, we were just kind of on the move, trying to find those elk, trying to figure out where they were.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I've noticed a few times, like a big one was this last spring bear hunt I did in Idaho. I'll do like a backpack full of sandbags, and I'll get on one of the boxes that they have at the gym, and then uh, step up quick, and then slowly go back down to the ground.
Oh yeah.
And I've noticed, the ground gave out from underneath me on one side of my, one leg, and so that it sparked in my head when I like picked myself up with my other leg. I'm like, that's what I've been doing this for.
So good. That's so smart.
Yeah. Yep. So it sounds like you got kind of thrown right into the old backcountry. Like you didn't really dip your toes into it. You kind of got dove right into some of the grittiest style of hunting.
Yes. Yeah, I was all in. It was like I mean, most of it, I think anytime I've really talked to anybody, oh, cool, you go hunting, like, what do you get? And then I tell them like, oh yeah, archery. And they're like, oh really? That's what you started with? Like, you ever done rifle hunting? And I've never gone on a rifle hunt. I mean, I've gone duck hunting, but I just was like, no, I think, I don't know if it's just, I mean, I think for whoever rifle hunts, it's great. Um, I just never really wanted to use a gun to do it because I felt like when it was explained to me, it's like you have to get really close to these animals. You have to stalk them and you have to almost make them think you are one. You do have to make them think you are one, or they're not going to come into you. So you have to. It's just it almost felt like more fair in a way because you don't get to just be across the canyon and looking at them and looking in the. Well, I mean, you do that a little bit, but you got to get them to come in closer because your arrow's not going to fly that far. Whereas a gun, I mean, they have no idea. And my first experience with seeing an elk face to face was the coolest thing. I like almost get teary eyed thinking about it because it happened first. It happened so fast, and it was like, I guess I can. Do you want me to tell you that story?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So it was the first day of our hunt, first light. We park the truck, we get out, we walk, and both my hunting partners like stopped and they're like, shh, be quiet. And I was like, okay. And then we stood there for like probably 5 minutes just listening. And I kind of got tired of holding my bow, so I put it on the ground. And then they're like, "Okay, come on, let's keep going." So we keep going. We get up to the ridge line, and I'm like, "I gotta pee." And so I hand my bow to Connor, and I'm like, "Can you hold this?" And he goes, "Anna, where are your arrows?" And I was like, "Oh no!" So we're like, "Okay, well, I guess we got to go back and find them." So we go back, and, like trying to figure out where it was. And I was like, "I'm pretty sure I left it when I set it down." And so we kind of tromp back there, and we're making a ton of noise. So like he's cow calling and stomping, and we grab him, and then he had set his backpack down up closer up to the top, and so we go back up there, and he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go get this." And he runs over, like stomping, like making all this noise, and he bends over to pick it up, and he looks behind, and he goes, "Get ready, get down, get ready." And I'm like, "Get ready, get down. What do you mean?" Like I'll just panicking in my head because I'm like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." And so I get down and I'm crouched down in this little thing and knock an arrow, and I look over at him, and he's standing straight up and he's full draw, and this cow elk just walks right out, and it's maybe like 10 yards in front of him, just full frontal in front of him. I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And I knew that they were big, and I think that that's pretty common for people who are like, "Yeah, they're big, whatever, it's fine." But then when you come face to face with them, you're like, "No, you're big. Like, you're bigger than a horse." And so that
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't have it fully drawn, and I was just watching, and I was like, "Oh, he's gonna get this right in front of me. This is amazing." And then she like kind of jolted and came running and was maybe like 5 yards in front of me, and I'm just standing there like looking right in her eyes, like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." And then didn't do anything, totally, crap the bed, and she just boom takes off and kind of walks back into the bushes, and I was like, we make eye contact, and like, "Why didn't you shoot it? Why didn't you shoot it?" And I'm like, "Oh, dang it." So that was the rest of the hunt. We heard maybe a little bit and kind of got into him, but I didn't really get another encounter or another shot. And then the day or two after I left, they got one. I was like, "Dang!" But I like after that moment, just chasing that high, right? It was
Yeah.
so incredible. I'm like shaking thinking about it, like getting excited to go back out there later this year.
So, will this be your second season
Mhm.
hunting?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And you did some waterfowl hunting. How was that? Did you enjoy the brisk mornings in a duck blind?
Yeah, actually, that's a funny story too. So, I don't know if you know Johnny Mack is from Soul Seekers. So he threw that event in like Marysville area. It's an annual event that they do every year where all the hunters come together. They have tons of raffles and all these prizes. And I wanted to be like more involved in the space. And one of the gals from my office, ended up uh, inviting me out to this event, and I went out by myself, and she wasn't even there. So I just walked in, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's a lot of people here, and I'm so not dressed for this." Like everyone was in camo, just dressed up like hunters, and I'm like in this little outfit, like, okay. So they had she eventually got there, and she was like, "I want you to meet someone." And so I went up to him, and he was like, "Oh, you're a new hunter." And he was like, "Have you ever gone duck hunting?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Do you want to?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "What do you want to do it tomorrow?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so he's like, "Okay, meet me here at like 3:30 or 4 a.m." And so I drove out to this out in Linden, super far north. It's like a 2-hour drive for me. And I get it I get out there, and it's still dark. And I like as I'm driving thinking, I just told this random guy that I would meet him at this warehouse at 4 in the morning in the middle of nowhere. Huh. And so I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." So I pull up, I get in there, and they're all like ready, and they've got all their gear and stuff on. And um yeah, it was super fun because you don't have to be quiet in a duck blind, right? So I've got all these dudes that are just like being dudes. This is probably one of the most
Yeah.
entertaining times I've ever had. Just in general. They were just, saying what hunters say, I guess, and being super funny and making fun of each other. And then I would get some quick whips in and they'd be like, "Ah, she can hang." So that was a really fun time. And there's a video up on my Instagram of the first duck that I got. And I don't know, it was a really fun experience. Getting up that early though, I'm like, man, getting out, it was still dark. We had our headlamps on, had to go out there, set up the blind in the dark, and I think there was like 10 of us in that duck blind, which was a little cramped, but it was still fun.
Yeah, it's always entertaining when you get a bunch of people slightly hungover, sleep deprived, stuffed in a duck blind, and then, sometimes there's nothing flying and everyone gets bored and, can't be held responsible for what gets said in a duck blind.
Yeah, nope. 100%. I mean, yeah, it was fun. I would do it all over again. It was awesome. Oh, I got a cat.
So, let's see. So, you said you did a little bit of hiking before you started hunting?
Yeah.
Uh, s-
What?
would you say how's your connection with nature changed since you started hunting?
It's a good question. I feel like,
Like, do you feel?
huh?
Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, I feel like my appreciation for how it works and how we're a part of it has changed, like increased, and my respect for nature has increased. Um, I mean, when you go on hikes, I'm not off-roading, right? I'm not gonna be like, oh, there's no trail that way and a ton of trees and foliage. Let me go that way. It's just stay on the same path. Like the views were incredible, right? You get to the summit of a hike and it's absolutely gorgeous. You're surrounded by 50 other people up there, and everybody's having kind of the same experience. Whereas when we went hunting from start to finish, it's something that can never be recreated. I mean, sure, you can go out there every time, but you're never going to have the same hunt twice. Even if you go to the same location, like my hunting partners have been going to the same spot for 14 plus years, and they've never had the same two stories. And sure, you can say that on a hike too, but I mean, you go on a hike, you got a bathroom, right? You got a bathroom at the end of the hike you can use. You got a car that you can get into and take off and clean yourself off. When you're hunting, you got a hole, you got a shovel, that's it. You can get in the car, maybe at the end of the day if you're like driving around, getting to your spots, but you're forging your own way the whole time, and you have to be like, I didn't even think about the fact of one, skunks, right? There's tons of other animals in there that if you spook them, it's not necessarily a good ending for you. Beehives
Yeah.
in the ground, right? Like those hornets that are down there. I would never have known like what those look like or even what to look at. Water sources, figuring out, okay, like, if you're a survivalist, you can't just drink from a stream because up north there might be a dead animal in it and now your water's contaminated. But figuring out like, oh, you can use moss as a filtration system, or there's just so many intricacies that I've never found when I went hiking, right? Like I didn't even have trekking poles when I went hiking. So I was one of those just like, yeah, I've got my tennis shoes on and I'm going to go up there. Now I've got these crispy boots that are so comfortable and amazing. And then I have gaiters on to make sure that the ticks don't get underneath there. And like, I don't know. The whole thing is just, I think I just love being outside way more. Now it's really hard to find me in a bar or find me home even. Most of the time I'm like, okay, I want to go out and scout and look at new spots and just be out there. And I just feel like I'm a lot more connected, I guess I would say, than I was before.
Yeah, it's way funner than spending time at bars and stuff like that. I kind of I transitioned from rodeo and then I kind of lost that as a passion, right? And so I've watched my buddies struggle with finding things to fill that void with, and because like that was our life, right? Like that's every day, every weekend, all you did, you watched it, you talked about it, that's it. And so hunting's became that new thing for me where it kind of helps keep me focused on something. I guess if that makes sense.
All
But
good.
um, which kind of leads me to what I was going to ask you. And I think you probably already said it, but like a specific moment that stands out that really heightened your appreciation for hunting. And I'm guessing it's probably that cow elk
Yeah.
encounter.
Yeah, yes, I would
Yeah.
definitely say that was like life altering, which almost sounds too much, but it's not. Like it was like I've been around animals before. I've been around horses and domesticated animals where, they're hanging out. They're there, you take care of them, you bring them their food, you give them everything that they need in order to continue to survive. Whereas when I was in that moment of like, wow, I mean, the not necessarily dark, it could be dark for some people, but the darker side of the hunt is that you're going out there to take that animal's life, to sustain your own life, which is it was just such a like a it something that I had thought about beforehand, right? Where I'm like, okay, I have to take this seriously because that's not an easy thing to do. Like not everybody is necessarily able to do that. And you don't know that feeling until you're face to face with that animal and you can hear that animal breathing. You can see its breath and you know like that animal's only object in life is to survive. And like I just think I take I take it for granted that I have all these things in life. Like I've got a comfortable bed, I've got 2 extra rooms, I've got a car that takes me wherever I want. Like I can make this money and I can get this food easy. Whereas those animals, they have to make it through all of the seasons. They have to make it through the rut. They've got to make it through the winter. It's just, I don't know. It's just so raw is what I've described it as, and just intimate to be face to face. And it's just you and that animal. Like there's nothing else in that moment. And it feels like time just stops. And you're like, I have this decision. And I definitely had a decision then, but I couldn't make it because I just froze. But that was, yeah, that just sparked that passion, and I just wanted to know everything that I possibly could and talk to every single person that I possibly could. And hearing people's stories, especially their first stories, like, man, it just seems like it's the same response of just that was something that they'll remember forever because it was so impactful in their life, and I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah, I think it's something a lot of people, like especially people who grow up doing it, probably at some point kind of take it for granted, the experience that they're getting. And it's always cool to hear like somebody who just got into it a little bit later in life, like living that experience at an age where like, like I was pretty young when I ran into my first animals, but to be a little bit older, it's a cool side of the story to hear. Uh, but so you kind of hinted at it. You've kind of changed some of your daily routines, like uh, drinking and going to the bar and stuff. Do you ever find yourself like getting looked at weird when you stop and stare at like a flock of geese that fly over, and you're trying to judge how if they're in range or not?
Yeah. Yes, that's such a good question because that's so true. I now like I'll go out with my family because my dad lives in Idaho, so he lives on Priest Lake. Mhm. My sisters and I will all come and visit, and anytime that we like take the quad out or take the side by side and kind of go and do whatever, I'm like stopping. I'm like, wait, look over there. And they're like, what? I'm like, look over there. And they're like, look at what? I'm like, there's a deer right over there. Where? I'm like, just wait for it to move. And then it moves and they're like, how did you see that? Like getting an eye for it. And I've other friends or if we like pass a river too, and I'll be like, that looks fishy. So that spot looks fishy. And they're like, yeah, okay, Hannah, we get it. I'm like, no, you don't. You need to come with me. You got to come and try it. You'll get it when you try it. But yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I do. Yeah, my daily life has changed dramatically. Like I wake up at 5 in the morning and I'll go do cardio, I'll do stairs for like 30 minutes, and then later in the day I'll go and work out again. Um, and like you'd mentioned too, like the food aspect, just making sure like my life is a lot more regimented than it was. And I mean, I work in real estate, so I'm have a relatively flexible schedule, depending on what my clients are needing at the time. But it's really hard sometimes to even work when I have such a flexible schedule because all I want to do is just like look on Onyx and just like start looking at different areas that I could potentially go hunt one day. Or just researching animals, watching YouTube videos of people's hunts. It's a completely different way of life. And I feel like for me too, like I still drink every now and then, right? Like I love whiskey, I love tequila, but I'm not gonna spend my nights until 2 a.m. out there doing what I did before because can't get up at 5 in the morning to go for a run. I mean, you can. Don't want to. I don't want to. That kind of sucks. But yeah, I would say that's the looks and the stuff from it. But then it actually kind of gets people interested too. So I've had both sides of the spectrum where they're like, yeah, okay, whatever, sure. And then I've had friends who have been like, well, can I come with you? Like, can we go fishing together? I'm like, I still don't know what I'm doing, but yeah, let's go. The blind leads the blind. Absolutely. So I've taken a few friends out to
Yeah.
Forks to go out steelhead fishing, which again is like one of the hardest things that you can just start off doing. But it was, if you get a good guide, then it's worth it and it's so much fun. I love steelhead fishing.
Yeah, I was kind of answered my next question was I was kind of going to see how like some of your friends have kind of perceived your change, like are they pretty like open to the fact that, you might be posting bloody hands on Instagram with some elk in the background or
Yeah,
something?
it's so funny because I like still don't necessarily. I mean, I consider myself a hunter, but like if you ever compare yourself to somebody like, well, that person's been hunting since they were 12, or that person's been out there since they were 8. But my Instagram went from these nightlife parties to a duck in my hand, or just me and camo all the time, or fishing rod or whatever. But all my friends have been really accepting over it, and they do get curious, and they have asked questions, and I have taken some people out to do things, and they always say that it's like was the most fun experience. Like they want to do it again, and I don't know. It's nobody's ever. I mean, I have some friends who are diehard vegetarian, very animal lovers, and when I kind of I've had they're willing to have conversations about it, which is awesome because I think there's just this idea when you think of hunting that you're just going out and you're shooting an animal and that's it. And like you don't care about the animal or you don't care about what happens or how their animal families think or things like that. And it's like they're vegetarians, so they don't eat from the factory farms. But when I kind of talk to them about, well, I'm going to continue to eat meat, and the way that the animal is when they're out in the wild, they get to actually live their full life. Like they get to do whatever they want to do. They have no bounds. There is no cattle fence that's keeping that cow, or there is no cage, depending on how the animal, like a cow, is actually kept in a farm. And don't get me wrong, like small town farmers, they love their animals too, but those big factory farms don't necessarily have the same care or the same respect for the animal, other than that it does provide them money because people still eat the beef. But the difference of, and I haven't actually gotten to dress an animal yet, so I a big game animal. But I did get some of the meat from that prior hunt when they got an elk, and the difference in the meat is, I mean, elk is like creme de la creme in my opinion. I've had deer and it's a little bit gamey. I've had bear and that was so good. And I even remember when I first went out there, I was like, I'll never shoot a bear. Like never. They're so cute. They look like little puppies. And then I got to be a bear and I was like, what, you're terrifying. And your meat is really good. But the difference is like with an arrow, especially, I mean, even with a rifle, it's one little pinprick and they then they maybe what I mean, if you hit them where you're supposed to hit them, they die pretty quickly, and it's not with a ton of pain, and that's it. And then you get to thank the animal for their life, and you get to continue to sustain your family. And when I have these conversations with my friends, it kind of opens up their eyes a little bit more. So it's not just like, oh, hunters out there killing animals and not caring about them, because I feel like hunters care more about the animals than some animal rights activists, honestly, because they've never actually been out there to see how it's done, to like be even with my hunt, right? It wasn't successful. I didn't get to harvest an animal. I got to see a ton of them. And I saw deer, I saw more elk, I saw what do we call them? Timber tigers, the little chipmunks, or they're
Yeah. Yep.
what's the grouse, right? That was the like when you don't know what a grouse is, and then all of a sudden you're like walking and you're being super quiet, and this thing just goes and just freaks you out. Like, what was that? It just flies out of there. Like I didn't even know a grouse what it was. So yeah, I would say that they're they're conversations with the friends is when you get to kind of talk to them about it and just show that you're not just out there being mean to animals. It's way more than that. Um, they're a little bit more receptive of it. It doesn't change that they're not going to eat it, but they do kind of say like, okay, well that makes sense. Ethical hunting, that makes sense.
Yeah, I refer to those as heart
Yeah,
attack birds.
yeah. Horse chickens.
Um, yeah, yep. It's kind of something we need though too. Is like um, your friends that might not go hunting, but more people who understand that it's not like what Disney painted it as, like over so many years. We're just yeah, vicious rednecks driving around in pickups, shooting at everything. It's good to have that conversation with people, and I think we kind of here in Washington are figuring that out
Mhm.
pretty
Yeah, I agree
quickly.
with you on that one.
Um, Speaking of that, I saw your speech. Was that the first time talking at a
Yeah, that was my first
commission
time.
meeting? Yeah, did a great job. If anybody's listening and hasn't seen that, I'll post links to that, links to your Instagram and stuff like that on here too, in the show notes. But I wanted to ask, another picture that's kind of painted about hunters, and it's a very male dominant sport, and kind of what your experience was is kind of jumping in
Yeah,
as a woman.
yeah. Man, I was. I mean, obviously, when I had that first experience with Connor, like it wasn't anything. I didn't really think much of it. But when I went to that first event where it was just me, it was I was scared. I would get like my palms were sweaty. I was nervous, and like I'm a relatively confident person. I think I have got a good head on my shoulders, and I can walk into a room and kind of make friends with everybody. But like you said, even having the experience that I had prior to going to that event, you do kind of have an idea of like, all right, well, are they going to just be like vicious rednecks that are not going to invite me because I'm a woman? Um, which honestly, I feel like there's been kind of a reputation for that, which was not the truth at all. Like it was completely the opposite. I think it was like a girl who likes to hunt. This is cool. Like this is so exciting. Here, let me tell you all my stories. Let me tell you the best advice. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. But even now, like I feel like people are almost more willing to help a female in this industry. Um, and I've seen some really strong women on Instagram that I've followed. Pacific Northwest Huntress. I mean, she's awesome. I follow her. She's great. There's some other really good anglers too that I'm like, man, this is cool. And they're all everyone in this community. I don't think I've come across a single person in the community that has been rude or mean or like unwelcoming. It's like arms wide open. That's how I've described it. And it I think it's just like a shared passion for something. And they don't care who you are, right? Like sure we all kind of have similar mindsets on viewpoints and whatnot, but they don't know me from the beginning. Like it wasn't like what side of the political spectrum do you land on? You can't hunt with us. It was just like, yeah, come learn. Let's do this. And so now I feel more comfortable. Like I went down to Utah. One of my gal friends lives down there. She's an avid hunter and she actually grew up in Alaska. But his name's Clint, and I went down there and he was like, beforehand, I just seen him on Instagram and was like, hey, I think I'm going to come to Utah. And he was like, cool, let's do it. And we went out there and met up with him. And he took us out camping in the Uintas. And like, that was it. Just, yeah, come have a good time, cook some deer fajitas, and just had a good experience. Like, there was never a moment where I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go. And it was funny though, because his buddy came and he's like this crazy good long distance range like military shooter. And again, one of those situations where I'm like, man, I'm just going out with these strangers in the middle of nowhere where I have no self perception, really good at shooting guns. You'd think it'd be dangerous, but I mean, and maybe it is, but honestly, you kind of get to feel the judge character and you realize like these people just have the most warm hearts and like just willing to share, which was so cool. I and I just like I crave those experiences, and I want to like get to know as many people as I can, and I'm not scared anymore. Like my palms don't sweat anymore. I get excited to go out and to meet new hunters and throw myself into it, so to say.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. We don't really have room to judge people based on a lot of things. Like, I hate when I see somebody that's like, oh, Democrat that hunts. It's like we need all the hunters. Like it'd be cool if I was the only person in the woods. That'd be great, but it's not realistic because the more people we can have on our side, regardless of race, creed, color, whatever, the better off we are at maintaining the ability to do it. So, um, other than that, I think it's like it's just a cool story. I don't know a lot of you guys are calling it like late onset
Yeah.
hunters or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't, it's super cool to see because like uh, everybody I know is just kind of everybody's still excited about it, but it's cool to see somebody that starts, learns it, dives in, and is really like passionate about it. I like watching yours and Will.
Yeah.
I want to talk to Will too. But so I guess if there's anything else you want to talk about, any stories that you got, I'd like to hear. Like, is you got plans this year? Where are you hunting? You hunting out of state? You just
Yeah,
hunting Washington?
this year I'm just going to be hunting, well, mostly Washington. I think I have so that gal that I mentioned that grew up in Alaska, one of her friends is still up there, and he had invited me to go on a bear hunt, which I haven't gone on a bear hunt yet, in Petersburg. So that's kind of on my radar. It'll depend on how it goes with elk hunting. So I'll be going out for September season out in Eastern Washington. And then potentially the bear hunt. I'd like to get back into a duck blind again because that was really fun. Then I'll have some steelhead and salmon trips planned. I don't know. And a deer hunt later in the year, in the snow, preferably. I want to try a cold hunt because I mean September is kind of cold, but I want to do it in the snow and see. I haven't gotten to sit in a deer stand yet, um, so I'd like to try that out and see how that works. Just try out because I mean I feel like everybody kind of has their own style as far as hunting goes, right? Like spot and stalk. You're gonna sit in a tree stand. There's just are you gonna bulldoze through? Are you gonna road hunt? Like what all? And you got to kind of figure it out for yourself. And I'm still figuring it out. And I think I like the physical challenge of hunting. I really enjoy the hard work that you have to put in when you're going up those mountains. So definitely for me, it's like the backcountry has got my heart. I don't have any trips planned out of state yet. I just learned. I went to the Elk Shape Camp through Dan Staton, and I got to learn so much. Like it was awesome. That was another instance where it was like, female going into a group of 20 men. There's actually one other girl there, which was awesome. She was the wife of one of the guys. But I'm so competitive too that I was like, no, I'm gonna be the best. Like I don't care. I don't care if it's a bunch of dudes I'm up against. Like I'm gonna go. So I was training and like doing all these extra. He has this thing called a stress test, and you basically like get your heart rate elevated because when you're actually out there you got to be ready because I was not ready that first year as much as I thought I would be. So I we had some stress test competitions, and you gotta like run and then come back and do 30 air squats and then shoot the bow and then run back up again 100 yards, come back, and then 20 lunge jumps on each leg and then shoot and then run back up again, come back down, and then hold that full draw for a minute and then release. And so, and then it was for time, but it was also if you missed the target, you didn't get a kill shot, then you added more time onto that. So it was when we got to do things like that, I was like, oh, I'm gonna beat these guys. I'm gonna show them what a woman can do, which was awesome. And I did hold my own. There was a few guys that I passed when we were doing the ruck, like up to the top and coming back down, and they were all walking, and I'm like, chook, 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 just trying to. I was about to die though. At the end of that, I was like dripping in sweat, and my heart's bracing, and like fully doubled over. But still, it was a lot of fun. I don't remember why I started that story, but that was a fun story.
Oh, all right. Just
Oh yeah,
asking about some of your plans. So, you're obviously archery hunting. So, late, probably do
yes,
some late deer archery.
yeah.
Is it you want to do in the
I'd
snow?
like to do that.
Pretty sweet. Yeah, I'm stuck rifle hunting this year, which is fine. But
Oh
I still
yeah,
can't pull my bow back. But
yeah,
we're getting there. But I really want to do. I was wanting to do what are they? It's a Northwest the
yeah.
archery challenge that they
I
have at
did
Stevens
that.
Pass.
Oh,
Uh, I
I
had
did
that
do that.
planned. Oh,
Yeah,
you did that too?
that was awesome. But I was I'm not stuck, but I got to be with all females in our group, um, which was crazy. Man, there were some really good shooters. This was actually pretty awesome because we kind of talked about how like people start at a young age, right? And there was first of all, that first leg of the challenge is just straight uphill, like 15 and almost I think 15, 20 minutes of just straight uphill. We were all dying except for the daughter of one of the women that was in our group. Her name was Ellie, and she was just I think she was 10, just tiny little spry, like just sprinting up that hill, and she'd turn around and be like, "Come on, girls, like you can do this!" Just our little cheerleader. And I like got to talking to her, and she had so much knowledge of herbs. It was insane. She was like sprouting out. We'd be walking, and she's like, "That moss up there does this, and that does this." And I was like, "What?" I'm like looking at her mom. She's like, and then she started telling me how she just got her first bear, and she used the tallow, like made her own tallow, and then she started to make her own chapstick and her own soaps and her own candles. And I was like, "You're 10? What the heck? This is awesome." And she
That's
just
awesome.
like so much passion for life at such a young age. And she was just so excited to be there. And like, never, even when she was tired, nothing negative ever came out of that girl's mouth. It was, again, like I said, all of these experiences, I just crave them because each one is so unique, but they all have the same passion and like the love for the outdoor space. And it was again, like I said, I can go to the store and I can buy a candle. I don't know where it came from. I don't even know what it's made of, right? It's burning these scents and I'm breathing this in where she's out there and she's harvesting an animal and using absolutely no waste. And she can make these amazing things off of something that I wouldn't have, I didn't even know that you could do that. Right. And then she's talking about beeswax too. And I'm like, man, this is so cool. I was like, I just want to come and hang out with you. Like you could teach me so many things. Just such positive experiences all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of the fun of it too, is learning all that stuff, and I'm trying to instill that, into my kids, and well, my son's only 2, so but my daughter, she's all about it. She likes to go out in the woods, and trying to teach her about berries and different things like that. And uh yeah, we'll see if she likes it when she
Yeah.
gets older, but I'm hoping she
Yeah. You
does.
can only just lead them to the path, right? Just hope that they take it.
Yeah. Yeah, she was a little leery the first time we brought home something that we'd shot, but she kind of warmed up to it. She wanted to hold the deer head,
Aw.
take a picture with it.
Cute.
Um, yeah,
I know,
most people probably think
it
that's
sounds
crazy, but
crazy.
yeah, um, she's always begging for bear sausage
Yeah.
and stuff like
I,
that. So it's kind of cool.
that's actually funny. I just had dinner
But
with a couple friends down at Edmonds, and they were asking, like, I was just telling them about how excited I was for this upcoming season. And he had my friend's boyfriend had grew up, and he said that he had one day like kicked a ball over into his neighbor's fence, and he went back there to go grab it. I think he was like 9 or 10. And he walks through the yard and he's like, "Hey, I'm just coming to grab my ball." And he like looks over at where his neighbor is standing and he's in his shed and he's just got this deer hanging, right? With like the skin off, right? And he was like, "Yeah, like what's that?" And like, cause he doesn't know. You're 10, 9 years old, you're just in a small city, and all of a sudden your neighbor just has this deer in the back. But he ran back over to his parents, and his parents were like, "No, no, like this is what happened. This is good. This is cool. Like, let's go back over there and take a look at it." And so then he kind of got like a little bit less traumatized, because if you don't know what's going on, like yeah, that would be a little, little disrupting at first. But I hope to have kids one day, and I definitely want them to
Yeah.
have that experience, or at least the option to experience that in the future, which I think is why it's so important to get more people involved. I know we're a part of doing that right now, but it's I just would be so sad now that I've experienced it and now that my eyes are open to it. If that was taken away, it's just like I just can't imagine that not being available for the future generations. It would just make me so sad. The way of life is just so much more respectful. Like I think coming from one side of the spectrum to the other, like city life, where I can just walk into the grocery store that's next to my house, or I can go down and we can just waste the night. Um, and it's just a concrete jungle. You see crows, right? Crows and pigeons. Cool. Maybe a bunny every now and again. But if my plan is to move out into, like I live in Edmonds right now, but um, I want to move out somewhere where I can have some of my own animals, or I can have some woods that have animals in them and be able to see that, what yard deer that they call it. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah.
I just
Yep.
hope that we could continue that and get people more actively involved in the space, because anybody that I've ever brought out and my experience with it, like it's just been so good. It's like, for lack of better terms, it's just been so good.
Yeah, it's cool, and speaking of helping them out, we're both in the Conservation Coalition of Washington. So that's also on Instagram. Anybody listening wants to check that out.
Growing pretty cool.
It's growing pretty cool. I think it's a good group of people, and I'm excited to get to everybody together and maybe do like
Yeah,
an archery
that would be
shoot or something. I
awesome.
think
Or
that'd be kind of
cookout.
fun.
That'd be fun too.
Yeah. Yep. So, pretty much gone through everything I was wanting to ask you, but except for future endeavors. Like, what's your like bucket list hunt? You got something that you really want to get
Yeah, I've
done
been
at some
tossing
point in
that
time?
idea around. Um, I really want to hunt in Utah. Um, I'd like to do like an elk hunt in Utah. Um, there's a couple outfitters that I follow, and I think it'd be really fun to go with one of those guys and get it like a trophy bull. But I've also kind of thought, I was like watching one of Cam Haines' videos of when he went and did a mountain goat hunt, and it was terrifying to watch. Like he got it, he shot it, and then it kind of tumbled down and went basically half on, half off this ledge. And so he traversed across the ice and got down there and had to physically hold it by its horns so it didn't go off the ledge. And I was like, okay, that guy's crazy. Like that's another level. Maybe I don't want to do that where I'm almost gonna die and fall off the ledge. But I think it would be really cool to do a mountain goat hunt if I could. Uh, I don't know where yet. Um, I did actually get a big game hunt when I went to that event. It was an auction, and I won a trip out in South Africa. So I'm going to try to do that next year, which I
Oh, nice.
also learned a lot about, because when you see those trophy animals in Africa, a lot of people kind of freak out. They're like, "How dare you kill a zebra?" or whatever it is, that you end up going out there. But I learned that the money that goes from the hunters going out there goes towards the preservation that they, or the what the land that they live on. and the people, there's such big bad poaching out there that if they didn't have this area, those animals wouldn't survive and they wouldn't be there. And the money that gets used, not only does the animal get used to feed the tribes in the area, the money gets used to continue the conservation of those animals towards the people that can go and like security, I guess, in a sense, to go and secure the gates so that poachers aren't getting in there to get those animals. They have veterinarians to go out to help if the animals are sick. Like it's to do a safari is amazing, but the money that they need in order to do it, Blood Origins is actually who it's through, who had donated that. So I've been following them, and man, the work that they do is incredible. And I think that if there are people who really appreciate those safari animals, that they need to understand why this is important. And so, and not actually that guy, Connor, had kind of told me about why, like elephants, right? Like if you have the ability to go and hunt an elephant, the reason that they target a specific bull is because it's too aggressive for the herd, and like it's a problem bull, and it's actually causing a lot of harm for that whole herd to continue to grow and to repopulate. So they have to take those out, because if they don't, then those animals aren't going to survive. So it kind of just leads, like even here, right? Like the way that the hunters can help in conserving the animals is by hunting them, because the populations can get too out of control. Like we have to have a way to manage them, because if humans weren't around, right? Like sure, animals would be able to survive. They'd have all the land and all the resources they needed. They would be able to have, the predators would have enough area to hunt, the ungulates would have enough area to live, and everything in between would just fall into place. But the fact is that we're here and we're populating and we're taking over their areas when we clear cut and we put in those row houses. And yeah, we need, as humans, like we need places to live, but if we're not managing that small area where the animals do actually have an area, then they are going to overpopulate and they can't survive. There's not enough food for the deer to all live. Like that's what the animal surplus is, right? Like the carrying capacity of an area, you have to know that there's only so many animals
Yep.
that can live in there healthily and bountifully and actually be able to come and procreate again and then continue on with what the animals do. So hunters come in there and they take over the excess, and it's not like you can't poach, right? Like you can't just go out and be like, oh cool, a deer, I'll just shoot that now. It doesn't work like that. You got to get a tag, and if it's a special unit, like you have to get a special draw tag, and you have to actually work towards these hunts. Like you said, if I wanted to go out and do a really cool hunt in a specific unit, like there's places in Utah that I'll never be able to hunt because I don't have enough points. I can continually put in my money, but that point amount is just going to continue to go up and up and up, and it's it is what it is. But those animal populations are super healthy, and that's why they have it the way that they have it. So yeah, got off on a little tangent there.
You're good. Yeah, it's all about creating value in the animal. If there wasn't a value in hunting in South Africa, then there wouldn't be the money or the need for people to go there to try to save them. Right? They're creating a value, and to help sustain the animals that are there. And same with here, if you stopped hunting, all the money from that, nobody's gonna have the value will be gone, so nobody's gonna want to just fork out all the same money for maybe seeing one cross I-5. Um, yeah, and like it's fun. Like I took hunter's education at a pretty young age, and recently, like you said, carrying capacity and surplus. Recently, I started volunteering and helping with instructing classes, and it was kind of cool. Like the first one I went to learn all that again, because it's been so long, since I've been through Hunter's Ed. So, I recommend anybody that's got a weekend or something to
Yeah.
volunteer at one of those and help some kids learn some firearm
That was
safety,
actually
stuff like that. It's pretty
when
cool.
I took it, it was kind of just like on the tail end of COVID. Like, are you allowed to go out? Do you need a mask on? But I guess I could have, because I was over 18. I didn't actually have to go in to learn the course. But I did, and it was so cute. Like there were so
Yeah.
many kids with their dads just hanging out in there, and I just was like, wow, it's such a cool way for families to be able to have good core memories, right? Like going to those classes and man, some of those kids were like, "Yeah, I know this," like just answering with after it, like they just and they knew all of it. And I was like, "Oh, this is I like you're more intimidating than walking into a room full of grown men hunters." But they're so sweet and cute, and we would we go
Yeah.
out to like look and to spot the animal, and they were like, "Oh, there," like I don't know. It was really cool to see the excitement in the kids' eyes at that point, and those classes. It was super informative too. Like I would never have known why or what a surplus was or why people hunt and to be able to ask these guys, especially as like I'd never gone on a hunt at all, right? Like before I went to that class, I'd never stepped outside with a bow. Well, no, that's not true. I had a bow and I shot at a target, but um, to to be able to listen to seasoned hunters and people who have had all those experiences and to just ask questions and have them answer them and be excited to answer them because they just want to continue on with the legacies that hunting can provide um, was pretty awesome.
Yeah, they're fun to be at. It's cool because you get, you know, uh kids from, 6, 7, 8 years old all the way up
Yeah.
to like 35-year-old grown men, right? So you get a whole range of people because there's a lot of people that might be going to a different state that require a hunter's ed class, but those people were grandfathered in here. So, a 67-year-old guy that wants to go hunt Iowa or something has got to take a class
Yeah.
now. He's been hunting his whole life. It's kind of fun to see. So, but yes, it's been a great chat. It's a really cool perspective to hear from, someone that's gone from, this big city life to hunting. It's cool to see. And thanks for coming
Yeah,
on. If you
no,
got
thank
anything
you for
else you want
having
to
me
get out
on.
there
It's
over the
I
airwaves,
honestly, it's fun to share my story, and I hope that it can inspire some other people, maybe anybody who's like on the fence about it, especially women. Like, if you have any type of reservation or anything, like you could reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about anything. I don't, I'd rather be able to share my experience if it gets people excited about it and out in that outdoor space. And if maybe I can learn something from you one day too, just like anybody who wants to talk about it. I'm an open book because that's what I've received. And I think that that's part of the culture. And I want to just be able to continue that.
all right, right
Thanks,
on. Well,
Andy.
thanks, and hope to talk to you soon.